There is a specific moment that feels almost unbearable. You know what you want to say. The thought is clear in your head. Maybe you've even rehearsed it before. But when the moment arrives, when the attention shifts toward you, when the room goes quiet, or someone looks at you expecting an answer, your body betrays you. Your throat tightens, your mind blanks, words disappear, and instead of speaking, you stall, or you say something smaller than what you meant, or you stay silent entirely. Later, the sentences come back perfectly, sharp and articulate, but the opportunity is gone, and you replay it for hours, wondering why this keeps happening. If you've ever experienced that freeze, you're not alone. And before we go any further, if this kind of breakdown between what you think and what you say feels painfully familiar, consider subscribing. This channel exists to break down these invisible psychological patterns that most people quietly struggle with but rarely understand. Sometimes clarity is all it takes to remove the shame from something that feels personal. Freezing when you need to speak is not a confidence problem in the way people usually think. It's not a lack of intelligence. It's not that you don't know what to say. It's that your nervous system is overriding your cognitive system in high-pressure moments. When attention turns toward you, your brain interprets that shift as potential evaluation. Evaluation to the primitive parts of your brain equals risk. The same systems that evolved to detect physical threat are activated by social exposure. Your amygdala, the brain's alarm center, doesn't differentiate between a predator and a room full of eyes. It simply registers increased attention as heightened stakes. When that alarm activates, the body shifts into a stress response. Most people are familiar with fight or flight, but there's a third response that is less discussed: freeze. Freeze happens when the nervous system perceives threat, but does not detect a clear path to fight or escape. In that state, the body immobilizes, muscles tense, breathing becomes shallow, cognitive flexibility drops. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for language and decision-making, becomes less efficient under stress. That's why your mind goes blank. It's not that the information disappeared, it's that access to it was temporarily restricted. The brain reallocates energy away from complex verbal processing toward survival monitoring. It's a protective reflex, not a personal failure. This response is often stronger in people who are highly self-aware or sensitive to social cues. If you naturally monitor tone, facial expressions, or group dynamics, your brain gathers more social data in real time. More data means more prediction. More prediction means more potential error. And when the brain anticipates negative evaluation, it prepares defensively. Freeze becomes the safest option. There's also a strong link between freezing and past experiences. If speaking up in the past led to embarrassment, correction, dismissal, or subtle humiliation, your nervous system learned that visibility carries risk. You may not consciously remember those moments, but your body does. When a similar situation arises, your system doesn't analyze it logically. It references stored emotional patterns and activates protection. This is why you might freeze even in situations that are objectively low stakes: a casual meeting, a small group conversation, even a phone call. The body doesn't measure stakes rationally. It measures familiarity of threat. If the pattern resembles something previously uncomfortable, the freeze response can trigger automatically. Another layer to this is perfectionism. If you hold high standards for how you present yourself, the pressure increases. The brain isn't just preparing to speak, it's preparing to perform correctly. That added layer of expectation narrows cognitive flexibility even further. Instead of communicating naturally, you're internally evaluating every possible sentence before it leaves your mouth. That evaluation loop slows everything down. Under time pressure, it can shut language down completely. There's also the element of internal pacing. Some people process thoughts deeply before speaking. They require a few seconds to organize their ideas internally, but social environments often reward fast responses. Quick reactions are interpreted as confidence. Pauses are interpreted as uncertainty. When your natural processing speed doesn't match the environment's tempo, the mismatch creates tension. The tension amplifies self-awareness. and heightened self-awareness increases the likelihood of freezing. What makes this especially frustrating is that once you freeze a few times, anticipation builds. You begin expecting it. Before you even speak, you're monitoring whether you will freeze. That anticipation itself activates stress. It becomes a feedback loop. Fear of freezing increases the probability of freezing, and each new instance reinforces the narrative that something is wrong with you, but nothing is wrong with you. Your nervous system is simply overestimating the threat of being seen. Understanding this changes how you approach the problem. Trying to force confidence or aggressively push through the freeze often backfires. The nervous system doesn't respond well to pressure layered on top of stress. What it responds to is safety. One way safety is built is through gradual exposure with regulation, not throwing yourself into overwhelming situations, but practicing small moments of speaking while consciously slowing your breath and grounding your body. When the body learns that speaking does not lead to catastrophe, the alarm response decreases over time. Another important shift is allowing imperfection deliberately. The more you aim for flawless delivery, the more pressure you create. If you intentionally accept that your sentence might not be perfectly structured, that you might pause, that you might search for words, the threat level drops. Communication becomes less about performance and more about connection. Breathing also plays a direct role. Shallow breathing signals danger to the brain. Slow diaphragmatic breathing signals safety. When you consciously slow your breath before speaking, you're not just calming yourself psychologically, you're sending a physiological signal to the amygdala that the situation is manageable. That signal keeps the prefrontal cortex online, preserving access to language. It's also helpful to reframe pauses. A pause is not incompetence, it's processing. In fact, deliberate pauses often signal thoughtfulness. The assumption that you must respond instantly is rarely accurate. Most people are not timing your response. They are focused on their own delivery and interpretation. When you allow space without judging it, the freeze loses some of its intensity. Over time, as your nervous system experiences more safe speaking moments, something subtle changes. The alarm doesn't activate as quickly. The body doesn't tense as hard. The blank space in your mind becomes shorter. You still feel some activation because social exposure always carries a degree of vulnerability, but it no longer shuts you down. Eventually, you may notice that you speak before your internal critic fully forms, that your words feel less rehearsed and more present, that the energy once spent monitoring yourself becomes available for actually engaging with others. Freezing when you need to speak isn't a flaw in your personality. It's a learned protective reflex, and reflexes can be retrained, not by force, not by self-criticism, but by repeated experiences of safety. The moment you understand that your silence wasn't weakness, but protection, you begin to replace shame with strategy. And strategy, over time, restores your voice.